The Nordschleife, the Green Hell. We've made it, folks. We're finally here. We're at the big race of the week, the Monday Night Lights, round 6, coming to you live from Nordschleife. I'm your host, Alex McKellar, and joining me in commentary night once again is Tim Gorkrocher. Tim, big night of racing ahead.
Oh, mate, I'm just so excited. It's this week was my first week at the Nordschleife, and it taught me a lesson or two. I copped a few I-rating losses, but yeah, the racing tonight should be outstanding. Plenty of good faces have shown up this week. A freshie to M&L, but a name that is exceptionally well known in the Skip Barber community, and that is Ade Coba Lopez, who I'd say is series winner a handful of times, but absolute dynamo Skip Barber driver. So he's here to keep a number of internationals and 8 of Aussie's best honest, and I'm pretty excited, mate. It should be an outstanding race.
Yeah, absolutely it should. And speaking of outstanding races, we might just, while the guys are finishing warm-up, just run through the grid here tonight for round 6, coming to you from Nordschleife, as we said. Ade Coba Lopez in first. As we mentioned, he's a big pro driver, won the overall official season a couple of times, so looking for a big performance for him. Bill Fraser, winner of the last couple of events for Monday Night Lights, here in second. Jason Willman setting an outstanding qualification time in P3. Michael Fiedler in P4. P5, Håkon Grebstad, another good time there in tricky qualifying conditions. P6, Teemu Vaskalampi, great to see Teemu back on the grid. Ben Snell, current series leader in P7. Carl Becker from Germany, or the Arch Club, in P8. P9, Kevin Henderson, great to see Kevin back on the grid. Good qualifying performance from him. Andreas in P10, sorry Andreas, I'm not even going to attempt to butcher your name in P10. P11, Thibaut Prevot. John Scholz in P12. P13, Kurt Steinberg. Things have just sort of rearranged on us here. Let me just quickly start that again. I think the session might have just ticked over properly. Ade Coba Lopez, Bill Fraser, Thomas Hinz in P3, Michael Fiedler in P4. Looks like the tricky separate qualifications caught us out once again. Carl Becker in P5, Ben Snell in P6, Kurt Stenberg in P7, Håkon Grebstad P8, Teemu Vaskalampi P9, Corey J. Ott P10, 11 Kevin Henderson, Thibaut Prevot in P12, 13, and the rest of your grid. We've only got a really short time here, guys, so we'll just run through the grid with Jason Willman once again not qualifying and sitting on the tail end of the grid. Sorry to cut that short, folks. It's a challenging week this week because the qualifying is separate here. The track's so long and the guys only get a minute to get on the grid. So there's your track. 3 laps tonight, 154 corners. Try and get some of those names right, Tibby. 62k distance, 40 degrees on track. Should be very interesting. Lights are red. Cars are getting ready. They're fired up, and the green flags drop. The green lights are on and they're away.
Exciting run through to turn 1 as the cars accelerate away from the line. A day gets away extremely cleanly. Bill Fraser in second. Jason Willman, as you said, qualified really nicely in third. And a group of hot internationals, Michael Fiedler, Håkon Grebstad and Teemu Vaskalampi, making up third, fourth and fifth as we run through to the first set of S-bends.
Yeah, challenging part of this section of the course, I should say, primarily because the cars are all bunched up at this stage. It's only 3 laps, 3 very long laps. You're looking at, what's that, about 450, 460 corners by the time you're done. But this part of the track, initially, it's got some challenges in of itself. Just it's what I call a driving part rather than a racing part of the circuit. And looks like everyone's got through cleanly as they head down the first of the 3 long straights here. Good passing opportunities. I beg your pardon, they're coming into the double right-hander here before that first long straight, where there's good passing opportunities into the tight right-hander at the end there, Tim.
Yeah, it looks like Bill's going to make a run on the... is he going to go left or right? He's going to go... He's biding his time. That's strange. I thought he'd be pretty keen to make a move on Ade Coba Lopez as they come up to the sweeping left-hander down the hill. And not making that move allows the Hungary pack behind, and there's 5 cars there as well. So a group of 7 now leading this race. A day in control, followed closely by Bill, and I'd just be so surprised if Bill didn't want to have a crack up front and see what he can do to get out a bit of a lead.
Yeah, well, there's different ways to work together here, isn't there? I mean, Bill's right on his tailpipe here, looking to put pressure and really perhaps unsettle the pro licence holder in Lopez. But really, Ade's been through all this sort of stuff before. He's got a very cool head and is a very skilled driver. He's been to Monday Night Lights a few times. It's great to see him back. In fact, along with Ade and Bill Fraser, there's a few guys here that have rocked up and they've put us at the strongest strength of field of the week. We've cracked 3,500. Was saying before, the strength of fields, which is about the average of all the skill ratings of the drivers in the field tonight. This week overall, we've had a lot of semi-high strength of fields with 18. This will be the 19th race or the 20th race that's had over 3,000 strength of field, but nothing more than about 3,400 until tonight, folks. Top shot of the week at 3,500 as the cars make their way through this tricky downhill section now.
Yeah, no, that's a good effort. iRacing is delight here. If you can put together a nice race, there's oodles of points on offer. But Ade's in control. He and Bill have just pulled out a small gap, 9/10 at this stage over Jason, Michael, Håkon, and Timu. But that's, I guess, what are you going to call it? A second pack? It's not even there's not even a 1 second lead yet, but it is from P3 through to P13th. Separated by around 3 seconds. It is a massive pack as Bill goes extremely sideways, following Ade, who's off the track at the moment, through the left-hander, up the right-hander. Bill goes around the outside as Ade's run is heavily compromised. It surprised me if those lot, actually they're going to come under a lot of pressure from the following, 11 cars who are keen to make a move as we come up the hill into the right-hander.
Can I tell you, there's not a gap in this field, this 17-car field, over about 2 seconds. It's not until you get down into, where are we, in about P14 before the first 2 second gap opens up. This first pack now is 13 cars strong. Amazing standard of driving so far. Perhaps everyone just feeling each other out. I thought Bill Fraser showed a lot of patience there, perhaps wanting to work with Ade Lopez early, as Ade now pulls out to the left-hand side of the track to make this move up the hill, the second long straight, although we call it a bit of a bendy straight because look at that, 5 cars back behind this leading 3. What a crazy track this is turning out to be, and outstanding drivers. Everyone makes their way through there, no incident. Oh, a little touch behind by the looks.
It might have been Benny Snell, copped a bit of damage as looked like he went side by side with, I'm going to say it was Carl Becker, but unfortunate for Benny, might have picked up a bit too much damage. Cost him a handful of positions, but let's hope he hasn't got a damage to the point where he has to pull out of the race.
Oh yeah, a little side-by-side action there with Carl Becker, as you say, as they went through that uphill kink. Looks like he's been able to continue, but it did cost him some positions, as you say.
Yeah, fortunately that straight here is several kilometres long and he'll be able to make his way back past a number of cars. But looking at his car, it does look pretty clean. Might be a bit of a netcode touch. 0x contact, as they say, and Ben's fortunate to get away with it. Yeah,
just looking on board of his car now, looks pretty straight, as you say. Look, he's trying really hard to ride those curves, and they're big curves here, aren't they, Tim? They really unsettle the car.
Yeah, the ripple strips too, but I think I'd almost say that Ben might have some steering issues because it didn't look like he caught too much of the ripple strip, but he certainly got thrown out sideways. But I guess the following few corners will tell the story, because he's either going to keep up with the gentleman in front or he's going to get flogged and left behind. Kurt Stenberg in front of Ben at the moment, but it looks like he's hanging in there pretty well. Having said that, the group in front are backed up pretty heavily, so I don't think it'd be too hard. He could drive at 80% and keep up with that group at the moment. So fortunate for Ben, he looks to have got away with a bit of netcode.
Yeah, meanwhile up front, those front two, Bill Fraser and Ade Lopez, have made a bit of a gap here. It's now to nearly 2.5 seconds over Håkon Grebstad running in third, leading that chasing pack, which runs all the way down to John Scholz, beg your pardon, Andreas in P13. is the end of that pack. So that's a long string of Skip Barber cars there, but these front two are making some really spectacular racing, it has to be said. It looks great following these two nose to tail. A lot of skill in doing that from Bill in particular, not to unsettle or just give a little nudge to Ade in front, and he's doing a great job at the moment.
Yeah, as we've seen recently, I mean, Bill's been on fire. He's, what do you say, at one with the Skip Barber. He's a very talented driver, but this is the class he focuses on. And at the moment, he's extremely comfortable keeping up with the day. Interestingly, the gap was formed when Michael Fiedler went through the first carousel, got a little bit sideways, rode up over the centre of the track, where you lose all the camber that really gets you through that section nicely. And that cost him a lot of time as Hawkon ran up the inside. But Ade and Bill making their way onto the back straight. Bill's got a handful of tenths to gain, but you know, he'll be in that slipstream and he'll be past in no time at all.
Yeah, look, he made a slight mistake coming around that final right-hand bend onto this massive straight here. Touched the grass a little bit, but really didn't seem to lose that much control. But he has now seen that draft come into full effect, and Bill's just cruising by him at this stage.
Interestingly, Håkon Grebstad's pulled a small gap on the group from P4 through to P8 ahead of Carl Beck, and just over 2 seconds. It might be a bit of damage in the background. Michael Fiedler's had a crash.
That is a big crash.
It's occurred there.
Oh, there's cars stricken everywhere. We might go see if we can get a replay on that, folks, and see what happened. Just going on board now. Looks like the car number 7's got in the rear of him and just sprayed him across the track.
That is...
Yeah, Kurt Sternberg there. Stenberg, is it? I beg your pardon. Just got into the back of him. I don't know if he tried bump drafting, but it sent Mr. Fiedler into the stratosphere. Car 12 there is Thibaut Prévost, who's also been caught up with that. That's just decimated that trailing pack, it has to be said, and there'll be a few sore heads after that one, I'd say. Oh, car still spinning afterwards. Oh, Jason Willman looks like he's been caught up in that. Kevin Henderson. There's a whole bunch of people there that'll be not thanking Kurt for that little nudge. And Kurt, of course, he's just sitting there in P4 and he's lonesome now without his front wing, trying to chase down Håkon Grebstad by the looks.
Yeah, that's going to cost him quite a bit of time, and potentially rightfully so. I got to say that incident was entirely his fault. Ran too close and cost a number of guys their races, disappointingly. But he's going to come under a bit of pressure from Tim Vascalampi behind him. He's in the car without too much damage. Looks like he got caught up in the incident. I assume got through pretty well unscathed, but cost himself a lot of time in the process. Yeah,
I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys in the pits, either directly through that incident or no. We were just talking about 11 to 13 cars deep in that pack, and unfortunately it's all come unstuck. But back up the front now, we've got Ade Lopez tucked in behind Bill Fraser as they tuck into this second or third gear depending on your preference, right-hander at the end of that long first straight, and start once again heading down this. This is actually, in my experience, the fastest part of the track, draft notwithstanding. You can actually tap out the skippy at about 215 kph down this hill in draft, and it's a lot of fun. But you come up the top of this hill at the end, and it's a wild ride once you try to get through the ever-tightening series of corners at the top of the hill, Tim.
Oh, speaking of ever-tightening, Bill Fraser's almost caught out. He runs well and truly over the ripple strip on the right-hander, keeps his foot in it, nice and sideways, manages to stop it for the lefty, and makes his way through there probably as quick as anyone, despite the sideways action. So the day's looking pretty comfortable though, and I dare say these two are just going to manage that gap to Hawkon, do nothing silly, work together pretty nicely, and it'll all come down to the last several kilometres of the track through the extremely fast section. But Bill off the track again. He's obviously pushing pretty hard because he wouldn't be making those mistakes otherwise. The day obviously an exceptional driver and putting pressure on with his eyes shut, really.
Yeah, absolutely. He's trying real hard, isn't he, Bill? He's working really hard, using every bit of the track and more. Really dangerous sort of activity to undertake here, as they're on lap 2 of just 3. It's a very long track, so only a couple of laps to get through. As we see Hawkon just off in the distance there. He's about 3.2 seconds. These guys are lapping probably about a second or a second and a half quicker than Hawkon at the moment. But this is such as the standard of these guys. Hawkon's no slouch, and to see these guys pulling away from him like that is quite impressive. I might just drop back to Corey Ott, who we haven't seen before on Monday Night Lights, unless I'm mistaken. He's tucked in P7 right behind Andreas, who again is a newcomer, although I might have seen Corey before. I do beg your pardon, Corey, if that's the case. These two are tucked in the battle now after that melee at the end of lap 1. Tucked in a battle now for P6 and 7. Given that they're ranked 10th and 13th respectively, there's some good points and good iRating on offer for these guys here as they battle their way through the remainder of about half the race, Tim.
Yeah, it is a good opportunity for them to get a nice points haul, and they've got around 12 seconds up their sleeve to P8, Toshimasa Hanada. So looking comfortable out there, 4 seconds behind Timu, so perhaps an opportunity to make 1 or 2 positions up, because Timu and Kurt are just a number of seconds up the road. But interestingly, we had that big crash earlier, and all those guys who were involved, 5, 6, 7, 8 cars, would have all had a tow to the pits. Most of them would have come out of the pits at the same time. So could be a bit of activity for the lower places, 10th onwards, 10th through to 17th, as we get through to the back side of the race.
Yeah, absolutely. They seem to be fairly spread out if I look at the telemetry at the moment. I'm just actually riding on board with Timu and Kurt Stenberg. Apologies if I pronounced your name wrong, Kurt. They're battling up the back straight. Timu did a bit of a leapfrog up through that uphill back section there, the straights. One of the genuine draft to pass opportunities on this track. I beg your pardon. For me, this is a lot about driving the track rather than racing it. There's only one real solid line as they go through the carousel on lap 2 now. This carousel, the 2 carousels have got an interesting history actually, Tim. I'm not sure if you're aware, but when this track was in its early years, there was a driver there whose name escapes me, but he used to dig his wheels into the outside of the track and really almost cut the corner. And it became habitual for many of the drivers here, so much that they dug ruts into the outside of the course, to the point where the track owners at the time basically paved it and said, all right guys, have at it. So now we end up with these 2 carousel corners, which I've got to tell you present some unique challenges if you're out there on track.
Yeah, they do, don't they? And it's so easy to get punished. I mean, you want to pick up 1 or 2k an hour, just get a little bit faster, and you think, well, it's banked, I'll get through it all right. Just not the case. Easy to get thrown over the top and ruin your race, and you get stuck at the fence and it's all over Red Rover. But yeah, the carousels, they have their challenges, and I've caught plenty of drivers this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Just looking up front now, and it looks like Bill Fraser, he's got out to that magic 1.1 second gap. He's managed to put a little bit of space between him and Ade Lopez. Ade Lopez now 1.15, so that's about as far as you would want to extend and still hope to get a draft. Bill's still using all the track available to him and more. Looks like he must know this track pretty well, because there's only a few spots where I'd dare putting my wheels off the side of the circuit, even not so much for the risk of the incident point, but the incident that might follow them, Tim.
It's funny, we were talking about the carousel. I'm just on board a day through a replay, and it's exactly what we described is what happened to him. He ran just a little bit high, needed to get on the brakes, and that was enough for Bill to get the gap he was looking for. As the day hopes to string together a series on 150 or so good corners to bring that gap into a manageable level, and one where the slipstream works.
Well, I was riding on board with Ade Lopez then, and we missed Bill. He had a minor moment, and that's brought Ade Lopez in as we hop on board with Ade now as they head up this very long straight. Of course, the history of this track had a bit of we were talking about it before, an airport in it. And my suggestion was that this might have been one of the chief runways. Look at this thing, it's a monster. And you could land plenty of planes in here, particularly in the days when it would have been used as an airport. Ade now well and truly in the draft. He's pulling up alongside of Bill Fraser now. Bill moving over to the far left-hand side of the track, just side by side, just to see if these two can make a better fist of it than the drivers behind them did last lap.
Yeah, I think this lap's looking quite a bit cleaner than the previous one. But interestingly, Bill, while he had a gap of just over a second, I think it was okay for him to weave left and right a little bit, but Ade caught the draft. Bill straightened up, chose his line as those two run side by side through the left-hander. As they make their way towards the up the hill through the right-hander, challenging right-hander actually. It's very easy to get too late on the brakes. Try and throw it in early, catch a bit of curb, and you wind up wall.
Yeah,
but the benefit there, it's not a long way to pits. So the toe, I mean, there's some parts of the track, if you stuff up at the start of the lap, where they are on track now, you're looking at a 9-minute tow. But if you're near the pits, it isn't too bad at all. But still, the idea here is to not bury it, and you won't have any problems.
Yeah, interestingly, those errors from the guys up front have allowed Håkon Grebstad in P3 to stay in touch. He's just still about 3 seconds behind, which is about where it was this time last lap, and he's just quietly making his laps, looking to run mistake-free, and he ran a good time there, an 8:03 dead, which is about the same as Bill and Ade Lopez, just with an 8:02.6, pipping him by about half a second there. So, interestingly enough, Håkon maintaining that gap. Kurt Stenberg now, he's just dropped off to be about a second behind Timu after that earlier incident and losing his nose in that in that unfortunate incident that managed to wipe out most of the field. But Timu Vaskalampi there in P4, that's a great result for Timu. Hasn't had the best luck of late. I just hope his connection and his Oculus Rift, he's driving in VR as we know, I hope that holds together for him, because he's had some trouble this week, and he's on for a really good points haul here and some good iRating to recover from. He's a good driver. He loves his open wheelers, big fan of the L79 and loves his skippy racing. He's a good bloke to have around. Fantastic to see him putting on a good show tonight.
Yeah, he's a very good driver, and you're right, he had the blue screen of death a number of times through the week. But good to see him doing nicely tonight. He's not too far behind Håkon. I don't think he'll catch him. Håkon seems to have his eyes forward, and he's maintaining the form that he showed in last night's Aussie Super Skip race, where he ran away with that race. He had it in the bag early in the piece, and I think he won in the end by 20-odd seconds. So really good form by Håkon. That gap is not unachievable. It's 3 seconds, but we saw on the last lap, Bill made a mistake, Ade made a mistake. While we like to think those two are just so in control, I mean, this is the Nordschleife. Anything's possible. So we'll see what Håkon can do, and hopefully bring in that deficit, and make it a battle with 3 at the front.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a battle of 2 at front at the moment. Just riding on board with Bill Fraser here. He's got his nose tucked up right behind Ade. He would have thought, how good is this? Oh, he runs wide again. Caught a bit of the wrong ripple strip. Struggles, maintains control. Still within the draft there. He'll manage to hold on through this another challenging. Oh, I tell you what, he wouldn't want to run too much closer to those outside curbs and the Armcos on the outside. They can do a lot of damage to a skip Barber. Let me tell you from first-hand experience. Another challenging downhill series of right-hand corners here as they dive down into this tight left-hander, drop down a couple of gears, try and turn the nose, bite the apex without touching the curb and get a good run out here. He's doing quite well here, although he's lost about half a second in that period. He's still well within the draft there, Tim.
Yeah, I'd say most of that time he lost, though, was where he ran off the track, almost put it in the wall, and found himself back in the pits as he gets extremely sideways. Loves that left-hander. This is obviously lap 3, the final lap, but he's put it through that left-hander and been extremely sideways every time. Taken a leaf out of the Ben Snell book of drifting, as he loves hanging it out sideways, but that gap's under control, and I think Bill's just got to settle in, keep that gap manageable, can't let it creep out over a second as we've discussed. Look forward to capitalising on the opportunities ahead on those long straights.
Yeah, that's right. Just jumping back to the battle for P6 and 7 now. Andreas putting pressure all over the back of Corey Ott here as they head through that uphill section again. They're about to dive into one of the most important corners on the track, a tight right-hander there that leads to this long uphill section here. I would imagine that as we ride on board with Andreas now, he'll stick his nose in the toe here, look to either, well, it's the last lap. He can either use the draft and overtake up this uphill section here. It's challenging to get right, but it is very possible to do if both drivers work together. He might stick behind and wait for the last straight. It all depends on whether or not he's confident he can build a gap in between now and the end of the race. No, he's lifted and he's going to sit him, tuck him behind and wait until the final straight by the looks to him.
I think that makes a lot of sense. You know, strategically, it's nice to think you can get away, but it's just not that easy. Really, you're relying on your opponent to make a mistake because the draft here is so effective. But it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I think sitting behind is the right strategy. That straight is so long, you can come from a long way back and make your move.
Yeah, 100%.
In time to gain that position.
Yeah, you're right there, mate. The challenging thing about that straight is it is so long, and what it can do, though, is give your opponent the opportunity to draft back. So jumping back up the front, we've got Bill Fraser and Ade Lopez once again nose to tail. It's fascinating to see how close Bill is comfortable driving, even though he's been touching the grass, the curbs, every single piece of track I think he's used today, and that's saying something around the green hill, let me tell you. But it'll be interesting to see what sort of strategy he uses for that last straight to take this, the highest off of the week, most points on offer for the week for the championship, and Bill's been doing really well. So I imagine, again, the Ben Snell drift going sideways there through the downhill left-hander. He'll be worried about the draft back, the draft to pass back. He'll certainly go past, all things being equal, on that long straight to finish with, but whether or not Ade will be able to get back around, it'll be interesting to see how these two play it out.
Yeah, I just want to get to that straight now, but there's plenty of corners beforehand, and this downhill left-right section is a good opportunity to pass to as they go over. What is that? Is that a jump?
It looks something like one, isn't it?
They get airborne. It's pretty exciting, and I don't know how the front wings don't get more damage, but they both get through unscathed. Again, down the hill, the left-hander, through a very fast section of the track as they make their way through to the second of the carousels.
I'll tell you what, Bill's putting on quite a show, isn't he? That car's going left, right, any which way but loose, it might be said. Second of the he's drifting again. He's putting on such a show here. I tell you what, he doesn't want to make a mistake here or he'll lose that draft. Goes through third gear, second carousel, comes out of it early. He's still within that draft. He's still within half a second, and he's lining himself up beautifully for that run to the flag, Tim.
I don't know how he got through the carousel, but he launched over the top, ran right out on the outside of the track. I swear he was going to put it in the fence. Somehow managed to keep it away, but for me, I mean, he pulls out to the right. He's gone too early. If he was 6, 7, 8 tenths down, get a great run down the straight as he makes his move across to the left. He's weaving. I don't know how legal that is in my book, but extremely difficult for Coba Lopez to keep in the draft.
Yeah.
I think you'd have something to say about this, to be honest. What are your thoughts, Alex?
Well, it's an interesting tactic. Not popular amongst many. Depends. I tell you what, Bill's now looking to draft back once again. So we've already seen one draft pass. We've seen a draft back. They're jostling for position here. Ade's got to pick a spot on the track to see which line he wants to take through the final series of corners. Left the door open on the outside, but that set him up for the third gear. Oh, there's contact there. They've managed to survive and hold on. Not too much damage there. I'm not sure if Bill closed the nose or Ade just crept over a bit, but looks like Bill Fraser's going to come through this last series of corners here. Not too much damage. Ade, he's decided to slide it around the last corner. Great victory to Bill Fraser. That's 3 in a row. Fantastic effort from Bill Fraser here tonight.
Yeah, he's on fire. Hawkon Grebstack comes across the line in third. Really nice race from Hawkon. No mistakes, clean, easy, put it together nicely. Team move for P4, and it looks like, was it Corey? I think it was, not Kurt Stenberg, P5.
Yeah, Corey Ott just coming across now for P6. He's dropped Andreas, who's now trickling across the line in P7. Thomas Hinz and Toshimasa Hanada battling it out for P8 and P9 as they cross the line now. Carl Becker coming in to round out the top 10. Looks like these are the drivers that certainly got caught up in that early incident. We see Carl come around the final corner. Jason Willman now just about to follow suit. He's rounding that final corner now. John Scholz, he's not too far behind. Where did he end up? There he goes. He's in P12. Michael Fiedler, yeah, he's coming down that long back straight. He must have, oh, that's right, we saw him catapulting down that straight, didn't we, in that incident? He'd be very disappointed with that. I mean, that was, you know, it just didn't really need to happen, did it? A nose in the rear up there in amongst a 6-car pack just is not the sort of thing you want to see, is it, Tim?
No, it's not, and really disappointing. I mean, Michael won the previous race for the one we're watching now, and he battled with Bill the whole race, all race long, and a pack of 4 or 5 at the front. Ultra clean, really good racing, and just disappointing for him. I'm sure he came into this race with high hopes for a fantastic finish, and perhaps to battle up the front with Bill and with Koba Lopez, but disappointing for Michael. And they are the lost opportunities of the Nordschleife.
Yeah, look, it's a challenging track for all, and you know, even those long straights, particularly that final straight as we saw tonight, they offer unique challenges in of themselves, and we saw that really brought a bunch of people unstuck just by one guy, perhaps overestimating or an opportunity that probably wasn't there. As Corey Baker now crosses the line, Kevin Henderson was the last guy I had on track, but it looks like he's in the pits. So, folks, we might just run through our results and see how things finished up here tonight for round 6 of Monday Night Lights. Here at the Nordschleife, we had Bill Fraser. He's won his 3rd race in a row here for Monday Night Lights. Fantastic racing between him and Ade Koba Lopez. They put on a fantastic show tonight. Interesting to see what their thoughts would have been on the final few corners there. It was a once, twice, thrice draft to pass opportunity up that massive straight. Fantastic effort from those two. Congratulations to both of them. Congratulations also to Håkon Grebstad, who trailed around in a relatively lonely race, it has to be said, for P3. Congratulations to him. A fantastic result for Timo Väskälämpi as well in P4. Great to see him snag a fantastic result. Rounding out your top 5 was Kurt Stenberg, who, from memory, might have been at the centre of that big accident that we saw at the end of lap 1. Corey J. Ott in 6th position. Andreas is in P7. He's up 6 positions to grab P7. Congratulations to him. Thomas Hinz from the Australian New Zealand club, down 5 positions. I'm not sure if he was caught up in that incident, but he's in P8. Toshimasa Hanada becoming a Monday Night Lights regular. He's in 9th position, up 6 from where he started on the grid. Well done to him. Carl Becker in P10. Rounding out your top 10. Moving on to the second page, we have Jason Willman, who's most certainly got caught up in that big incident, still managed to get up 6 spots on the grid to finish in P11. John Scholz also tied up in that early incident, P12. P13, Michael Fiedler, who was very disappointingly caught up and flipped around in that one, as we said, in P13. Corey Baker, P14. Kevin Henderson, I saw him get taken out in that big incident too in P15. P16, Thibaut Prevot, apologies Thibaut. P17, Ben Snell, who had fantastic pace here once again, as we saw during the week, and he was unfortunately caught up in an incident here tonight as well. Costly couple of races for him. He got caught up in one last race as well. So there you have it, Tim. Overall impressions of the race. How do you think the drivers fared tonight?
I performed, I think, above expectation. Always difficult to know whether you're going to have that one driver who just creeps away a little bit, or and have a lonely race up the front, or if it's just going to be a classic. And certainly the first lap provided all the excitement we'd hoped. We were like 27 cars deep, separated by a number of seconds. It was close. It was exciting. But well done to Bill Fraser. Good effort tonight. And just reading the chat post race. And Ade certainly had no issues with Bill, and he apologised for the touch. Could have been a netcode touch. It was certainly close, but no hard feelings between those two. And again, well done to Bill. A great result. Personally, I think Håkon would be pretty happy with the result as well. He 5 seconds off the win. You lose 1.5 seconds at least from the draft through that track. So if you work together up the hill, across the top, and then on the back straight, you're looking at 1.5, 2 seconds comfortably that you can gain working together. So Håkon to finish 5 seconds behind, really, really impressive. He'd be pretty chuffed, I reckon.
Well, why don't we find out, mate? Why don't you ask him? I'll bring him up and why don't you find out what he thought of his race?
Only too happy to, mate. Let's bring him in.
Good evening, Håkon. I'll hand you over to Tim. Welcome to the RRTV commentary booth. Tim's got some questions lined up for you.
Oh, nice. Hey, Alex. Hey, Tim.
G'day, mate. Hopefully you enjoyed that race, running lonely, 3rd. Just a whisker away from the front, and I guess a similar gap to Timu back and forth. Talk us through it. It was pretty exciting at the start. A lot of activity, a lot of cars running nice and tight. We had 12 or 13 in the lead pack, separated by 3 or 4 seconds for probably, the first half a lap. But I think at some point, might have been the first carousel, you lost you lost touch with the leaders. What happened there, if you recall?
Yeah, we were coming to the carousel there, and I'm not sure who was in front of me. It might have been Michael. Went a bit deep, didn't brake enough, carried too much speed, and got caught or booted out to the outside of the carousel. And I just couldn't hang on to the leaders after that. And then I don't know what happened behind me, but all of a sudden I had a gap, so I just kept
what happened. We certainly know what happened. It was pretty exciting. One of it's easy to get, the draft is so effective here, and it's easy to get caught up behind the driver in front, and that certainly happened here. And a bit of contact sort of brought everyone unstuck, and there were 4 or 5 cars involved, and Michael was probably the most heavily affected as he launched into the stratosphere. And if it was a real crash, he would have died for sure. But what was I going to say? You were fortunate to have that gap, because if you didn't, your night would have been over. Because everyone was involved. There was no one who got to actually... No, the gentleman who caused it, maybe he didn't cause it. Hard to say. Could have been net code. But Kurt Stenberg got through, and he finished 5th behind Tim. He had a bit of wing damage, but if you were in there, mate, it would have been all over for sure. So fortunate, a really good result.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you're happy, carrying on some good form from your extremely comfortable super skip win last night.
Oh yeah, that was it was a good fun race. And all in all, the first lap kind of gave it all out there, and the last 2 was just cruising around. I'm really happy about keeping in touch with the leaders as well as I did, especially with Ade and Bill Fraser being super fast.
Yeah, they're both ridiculously talented drivers, and we were saying before we brought you up for a chat that when working together, that draft is worth a couple of seconds a lap. So for you to finish 5 seconds behind, it's really, really impressive. So well done. And no doubt, Alex, got a couple of questions for you too.
No, I was just gonna congratulate you on a great race, mate. I agree with what Tim said there, mate. Hanging on to those guys in that sort of conditions and everything that went on around you. I was pleased that you weren't caught up in it, but certainly really impressed with that drive tonight, mate. Hanging on to Ade and Bill Fraser, given the form that they've got in the skippies, is fantastic effort, mate. So congratulations, and anyone you'd like to give a shout out to before we let you go?
Well, you guys, and yeah, that's probably it.
Great, mate. Well, we look forward to seeing you again next week, and hopefully the results will shine on you again.
Hopefully, yeah. We'll see you then.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Orcon.
Cheers.
All right. Well, we've got a special guest interview next, coming in and joining us from the second split tonight. I'll just bring up Les Peck. Les looks like he's had a good drive, and he's going to give us a bit of a recap on the second split. I'll bring him up for a bit of a chat. Mr. Les Peck, Alex McKellar here with Tim Gorkrocher in the RRTV commentary booth, mate. Just having a squeeze through the second split results. Looks like you had a bit of a good run there tonight, mate, with a podium in P3. How did things shape up for you tonight?
Very well, mate. Very well. Afternoon, gents. First, it was a really good battle tonight. Brad Parkin and Mick Gray actually got out front pretty quick, and it was me and Simon behind them battling pretty hard for most of the race. And then Mick and Mick and Brad started really battling on the last lap, which brought us to them. And Simon ended up coming from 4th to grab the win because he got past me and then got past them too. And unfortunately, Mick got a slowdown near the end before the straight, and they gave me 3rd. So happy with the result.
Yeah, fantastic, mate. And it was a nice, strong field tonight. Let me just see. Oh, what are we looking at? At an 1800, 1850 strength of field. That's pretty good for a second split on a Monday night. We had the top strength of field of the week in the top split. So, what are you about car 5? So it's getting tough to get into that top split. So, but a good result nonetheless. Mick Gray, car number 1. It's still interesting to see Mick not able to crack it for a top split run. He's finished in P4. Simon Dopp, as you said, took it out Brad Parkin, great result for Brad in P2. Good to see him find a bit of form. Yourself in P3, Mick in P4. Ben Seidel making another successful return to Monday Night Lights in P5. Ben's had a long time away from the skips, so great to see him finding a bit of form, coming back in amongst it, and look forward to seeing, well, collectively, all of you, hopefully in the top split sooner rather than later, mate. So thank you for joining us here tonight, mate. It's much appreciated. Anyone you'd like to give a shout out to before we let you go?
You two boys for your top job, and Bernie for doing the RRTV, and of course all the boys at Venom Racing.
Excellent, mate. Great to see Venom Racing getting a good result too, mate. So all the best for the racing in the coming week, mate, and we'll talk to you soon.
No worries, mate. Catch you later.
There you have it, Tim. Great result for Les and Venom Racing there. Good to see one of the second split boys coming up and having a chat too. Those guys, of course, this series that we run here, it covers the top 3 splits. We run a little competition on the side for points on the side, bragging rights if you like. Run the Monday Night Lights Championship, and we score points for the top 12 cars in each of the first 3 splits and aggregate that up over the season. And you know, I know from personal experience, before I was here in the broadcast booth, you can do pretty well from the second split. I remember my second season, I think it was, I finished in second spot in the Monday Night Lights, and just from running mostly in the second split. So it's possible, and it certainly adds a bit of an interesting element to the racing, doesn't it, Tim?
Yeah, it does. And I mean, let's not forget that these guys, it's not like they're not as good, not as fast. The way the scoring works, the iRating based on the rating based scoring, means that those perhaps who are less experienced, who haven't been racing as long, but might be just as good as the best guys in the top split, they battle it out, and for the most part, the better drivers work their way through to the top split. It's only a matter of time. There's only so many hours in the day, and we can't sit on the sim, unfortunately. But great to have Les up for a chat, and I'm sure he'd be disappointed when he finds out John didn't have the night he had hoped for. Skoltzy finished up P12 for Team Venom, but yeah, no, second split racing, I've done it too, and it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Just taking a look at that incident that sort of decimated our field. There were so many people caught up in it, and it was as we thought. The car number 7 there, which was Kurt Stenberg. He's caught the back of Michael Fiedler, and it's just it's decimated that field. Kevin Henderson's been caught up in it. Kurt's got away all right. Timo Escalampy, how's he going here? He seems to be getting through okay. Well, I'm just trying to find an angle on it. He got through the melee quite reasonably. Looks like he's just backed out of it and managed to pick his way through nicely, which is good, and hence he ended up in P4. Cost him a lot of time, but cheapest, there's some Skip Barber cars flying around in the air behind him. That was, you know, such a spectacular start in terms of the racing up front, all the way back down to P13. But as can sometimes happen in that sort of tight quarters racing, you end up with, some big incidents that follow. Quite a disappointing incident, it has to be said. But take nothing away from the winners tonight. We saw a great result from Bill Fraser taking out his third event in a row, as we said. Ade Cobo Lopez making a welcome return to the series. Great to see him back. Like we've said in previous weeks, they don't give away those World Championship licenses in your cereal box in the morning, so great to have someone of his standard, former official season winner, in the race with us tonight. And Hawkland Grebstad, fantastic drive, up 5 positions to take out the final spot on the podium. So fantastic racing from those guys, and congratulations to them. What's happening in the world of Tim Gorkrotcher this week, mate? Are we doing a bit of racing?
I hope to. Actually, it's Montreal this week, and I look forward to getting back there and smashing it into the wall of champions time and time again. But look, I did have one race this week, and it cost me a bit of points. And I mean, I love those things. They mean a lot to me. So I hope to get a few good races together at Montreal. And obviously, it's a popular track, really, really well known. So we expect a good turnout next Monday and plenty of good racing through the week. I don't know when I'll be on in particular, but I'll certainly get a few races under my belt.
Absolutely, that's fantastic. I'll be doing a few myself. Make sure you check out all the action on RRTV this week. There's a few races on during the week. Just head over to the channel you're on now. Check out the schedule of upcoming events. There's plenty going on. You can head over to the Top Split Twitch channel at Top Split TV. Over on Twitch, I'll be streaming races during the week, and of course the Friday night race club on Friday night, and then the big one on Saturday, the Bathurst 200 this week. I can't remember what car we're driving, but it's 32 laps of a great night out on a Saturday night as well. So join me for that, and of course head over to topsplit.com to check out the latest episode of the Top Split podcast with Brian Sheridan and plenty of the back catalogue there as well with some really interesting folk. We've got people like Chief iRacing steward Nim Cross Jr., Matt Malone and Quirketize, Tyson Meyer, a couple of the top iRacing Twitch streamers have been on the show, as well as Benny Simonson, professional race driver and former Le Mans, I always get that wrong, he won the 24 Hours of Spa. So plenty of action over there. Thank you everyone for joining us here for round 6 of the Monday Night Lights. I've been your host, Alex McKellar, and on behalf of Tim Gorcrotcher, wish you all a good night and ciao for now.